How's everybody doing tonight? Happy Hump Day. This will be my 13th discussion. Tonight I'm talking with the legendary Jayson Green from Orchid. All I Ask, Ritual Mess, um, Cheeseburger. It's going to be a great talk. I'm so pumped to talk to him. Just waiting for him to get on. Hope everybody's all right. Here we go.
Hey,
Hey Jay, how you doing?
good. How's it going?
Good, good. Thank you so much for doing this and taking the time
Sure.
out. I really appreciate it, and it's really great talking to you.
Cool. Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
No problem. Just usually I just talk about what was going on back in the day and what you have going on now
hmm
for music wise. I know you do some comedy and DJing and a bunch of other stuff. So
Yeah,
I'd like to hear about that stuff too as well.
cool.
But first off, I'd just like to what was your first band that you were playing in? Was it All I Ask or was Orchid? Did
Uh,
Orchid come?
no, all I asked was first. I was in, there was a couple of, I was always kind of playing in bands in high school, sort of false starts, never really playing shows, but the first band that I played shows with was All I Ask, which was my friends from high school in Connecticut, is where that started. And I played guitar in that band.
Who else was in All I Asked? Jeff
Jeff, yeah, Jeff,
Darlock was in.
who is the second bass player of Orchid, was the singer of All I Ask. And our good friend Eric, who is a great guitar player. This kid from our high school named Nick. Our friend Jesse played bass. Those guys didn't really go on to do other bands, but all awesome guys and musicians and stuff.
Yeah. Now, where did you actually grow up? Like where were you born and where did you grow up and go to high school? What state was that?
I was born in Vermont, in Springfield, Vermont, which is a dump. And then I lived there for a while. And then I lived in Farmington, New Hampshire, which I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I do know where.
Also,
Yeah.
also a bit of a dump. And then we moved to Cheshire, Connecticut, which was a very, at the time, it was a pretty small sort of farm. Mostly it was like a lot of farmland, pretty rural, suburban, near New Haven in Connecticut. And I was there from third grade until I graduated high school.
And did you go to high school with Jeff and
Yeah.
how did you go from Connecticut to link up with Will and those guys in Amherst to form Orchid?
Well, I met Jeff in junior high. We were in orchestra together in seventh grade, and we were like fast pals. There weren't many punks or anything in our town, so it was, you know, you find when you find each other, you kind of stick together. And then Jeff went to school in Boston. He went to BU, and I went to Hampshire College. And Will was at Hampshire College, along with Brad Wallace, our first bass player. Um, and again, when you see another hardcore kid somewhere, you kind of check each other out, and you want to become friends. And Will and I started talking. Will was much more of a grindcore, crust punk kind of background. He already had a record label, Clean Plate Records,
Yeah, yeah.
and he had a band, and he had released records. The Laceration was the name of the band, and we became friends. And he started he made me a mixtape, which really opened up my eyes to a lot of new stuff. Because I was coming from Connecticut, it was very meathead, hardcore, which I still love. I mean, Hatebreed, the lead singer of Hatebreed, booked all the shows. So
Yeah.
Jamie, and so it was that kind of stuff and a lot of youth crew revival stuff, which I was super into. And then Will started playing me all this German hardcore and grindcore and just a lot of stuff that I didn't know about. And yeah, we became buddies. He asked if I wanted to start a band, and I said yeah, and I assumed he meant me playing guitar because I played guitar in the other band. And he said, no, I think you should sing. And we had our first practice. I'm trying to remember. Our drummer Jeff Delaney was from UMass, and he was recommended to us through a friend of a friend or something. But we had our first practice, and then the first thing he said to us was that he couldn't play fast. But he obviously could. And then we made a demo tape, and then Will booked a lot of shows there. So he booked a show with Pig Destroyer, which was right when they started, because he had been doing records with Agoraphobic Nosebleed and stuff before that. So he did it was a show it was Pig Destroyer, I think Black Army Jacket. I can't remember who else. But after that show, like that night, Pig Destroyer said, "Do you want to do a split?" And then that was it. We were in a band.
And you guys did the first cassette tape, right, in 1997. We Hate You, right?
Yeah, that's the demo. Yeah.
And then from there, that the next thing was the 7-inch with Pig Destroyer.
We recorded a bunch of stuff in one chunk, kind of. So the first 7-inch, I might be getting this wrong too, by the way. I'll do my best, but the first 7-inch, the self-titled 7-inch, the Pig Destroyer split. I want to say the Encyclopedia split, but maybe it was a comp. But we recorded all that stuff at once with Steve from Today's the Day.
Yeah.
And then they all kind of, I don't remember sort of how, once we had the demo out and we sent it around a little bit, and then Brian, who ran Handheld Heart Records, is the one who put out our first 7-inch. He asked us to do a 7-inch, and then we had the split. Those were the first two main ones.
Yeah.
I don't know I think the Pig Destroyer record came out first, and then the self-titled 7-inch.
Yeah. So what drew you to heavy music in the beginning? Like what drew you to it? Like, did you obviously metalcore probably first before, I hate genres, so I can't stand the word screamo and scrams. It just drives me crazy. But
if it drives you crazy, think of how it makes me feel. I got into it through punk rock music and metal. I had an older cousin who lived with us when I was about 10, and he was a huge metalhead. And he would give me cassettes that he deemed to be kind of wimpy, that he was graduating to Slayer and stuff. And so I was getting Motley Crue and Faster Pussycat and all that kind of stuff. And I loved that. And then I got into Metallica and Slayer and watching Headbangers Ball every night, got really into metal and punk. And then through that, it was sort of just luck of the draw that I ended up even knowing about hardcore. It was kind of like seeing a Quicksand video on 120 Minutes and being like, what else is that guy in? And then buying or liking a Fugazi, like seeing a cute girl with a Fugazi shirt. So I buy the tape at the mall. And I'm like, what else did he do? And then I get Minor Threat. And then that was kind of it. And also I like things that annoy people. So I'm into very alienating music. So that's sort of the,
I being from New Hampshire, I always would, go down to Connecticut for shows, and I was into metalcore to begin with. Well, first I was into heavy metal. My mom was a heavy metal fan. She would drag me to Judas Priest and Iron Maiden shows and Scorpion shows and stuff like that. So I got lucky. I got lucky to see all that when I was real young. This was before I was even a teenager. And then I started getting into, like you said, Slayer and thrash metal, and that turned into metalcore, and I started listening to Hatebreed and Disembodied and Die My Will and stuff like that. So Connecticut was always a good time for me, and it was always a pretty rough show when I'd go down back in the day when I was a teenager or a mid-20-year-old.
It was kind of a scary scene. A side note, the guy from Die My Will recorded the All I Ask 7-inch.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, I think about those shows as an adult, and I can't believe that I was going to these shows. It wasn't until I got to college that I thought it was normal to go to a show. I didn't realize that there were not fights at shows. I just thought there was always fights. I was at a show where there was gunfire. I mean, it was completely insane. There was gunfire, and then the show kept going.
Really? who was the headliner at that show?
I'll give you, take a guess. Take a wild guess.
25 to Life?
No, it was Hatebreed. It was
Oh,
Hatebreed.
Hatebreed, was it?
There was a fight between Hatebreed. So it was the Connecticut gang, which was SDS, and FSU, the Boston gang.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They came down and they had a huge brawl. It was at this place in New Britain called the Sports Palace, which was like an indoor soccer arena. And it was gnarly.
Now, did you take the trip up to Boston to go to Boston hardcore shows as well when you were going?
Yeah, I would go to the Rat to see bands from time to time. It wasn't a ton. And once we were in college, I was going to Boston to see shows a lot more often. But yeah, I would go to the Rat was the main place I would go.
Yeah.
To see hardcore
Now,
shows.
did you ever go to the Channel in Boston, or were you?
I've never seen a show at the Channel.
Yeah.
I don't think. How long was the Channel? Is the Channel near Fenway?
It's semi close to it. It's right on the river. The big post office building is right across like the little inlet where the river was. The Necco wafer building was right to the right of it.
Yeah. I don't think I have been to the Channel. The Panthers played some weird clubs over, but I don't think it was the Channel. No.
Yeah, I think the Channel had gotten shut down due to like some weird gang, like mob stuff that happened. Yeah, it was like a mob hit or something like that happened in the Channel.
Sounds about right.
So what kind of metalcore bands did you really enjoy back then? Obviously Hatebreed, but I know that Jeff.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I know that Jeff, the bass player, was into Victory Records bands like Earth Crisis and Integrity and stuff like that. Were you into that?
Yeah,
as well?
For sure. Yeah, I loved Earth Crisis. I loved Strife. I was into Mouthpiece. I was really, really into Youth Crew. Like I was into the Youth Crew revival stuff.
Yeah.
But in terms of like the heavier stuff, I loved Dead Guy. I was obsessed with Dead Guy. Still love Dead Guy. Yeah, Hatebreed was big for me. Yeah, sort of the standards. It was like we weren't privy to all the cool shit necessarily at that point. It was what was there.
Yeah,
and it was it was fun stuff that I still have a soft spot for a lot of it.
I mean, I'm kind of in the same background as you. I grew up Youth Crew too. I kind of never stopped dressing like Youth Crew when I started going to screamo shows and getting into a screamo band too. So I kind of didn't fit the mold that everybody else did, just because I mean that's what I grew up with, and
sure.
I kind of never stopped dressing like that. And similar
Good
to
luck. What are you gonna
do? Similar to you, I never knew there wasn't moshing until I found. I think the first show that I went to, I saw a Tin Can Fest that Pete had set up from Sinaloa, and those bands opened my eyes to like a totally different way of thinking about music, and it kind of steered me to that direction of liking that style of music. And, and like I said, the people weren't punching each other and spin kicks and stuff like that, so it was like a love of my life once I found that kind of music.
You go to a show where no one gets stabbed, then it's kind of nice. A nice feeling.
So
Sorry.
Oh, no problem.
There we go.
So when Chaos Is Me came out, did you think that it would have the impact it did nowadays, like or even 10 years after? I feel like that's like the epitome of that kind of music in that genre. You guys are like the Godfathers. You and I, Seisha, Jerome's Dream, Page 99. You guys are like the Godfathers of screamo, I guess you would call it. I can't stand saying it, but did you think it would have that much of an impact? Because I think you guys are legendary, because if somebody's listening to Orchid 20 plus years later and still loving it, it feels legendary to me, because that music just I don't know. It just speaks to me still to this day. I'll put it in rotation, and it still is very,
That's great. I mean, that's so nice to hear. At the time we were making it, no. I mean, Kent McClard he didn't want to put it out. So Um, I don't think we really thought about anything. I mean, in that scene, as you probably know, being sort of like humble, not thinking about, it's like we played on the floor. We were like no better than the crowd, which whatever, now at this point, I don't know.
Yeah.
But, I think we never really, there was a period towards the very end, like when we played our last chunk of shows, that was the first time I'm like, oh, like people like this. Because we were still doing tours where it'd be, 20 people in the room, 30 people in the room. Sometimes a lot more, we played like More Than Music Fest, and it was another thing where I'm like, why are we, the fact that we were like playing last and there were so many people there or whatever. But no, I certainly didn't think it would stand the test of time, or that it would be like a record that people still listen to.
Yeah.
We had a joke. We were recording when we got asked to be on a compilation for it was a tribute to an Italian grindcore band called Crippled Bastards. I don't know have you heard of them?
I have, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we were debating about doing it, and we always had kind of jokes about Crippled Bastards, Will and I. And I don't know if it was Will or me who said, we should do it because if one day we ever get a discography, how hilarious will it be if we have one song that's a Crippled Bastards cover? And the name of the record was called like Falafel Grind or something like that. So that was how little we thought of our band. Like I didn't think we'd get a discography. I didn't think it was all like, in the moment. So no, at the time, no.
In less than a month, Dance Tonight Revolution Tomorrow turns 20 years old, which is crazy too. I know, 20 years old. It's crazy. And I hear a lot of people that I talk to just say that that's like a brilliant album, and I think it's amazing. I think it's the best album you guys put out, honestly. And I love the last album you put out too. Don't shoot me, but Chaos Is Me. Like I like the last two albums before Chaos Is Me. I love it all, but I'm just saying those are just like my favorites to listen to.
Cool.
And how does it feel saying like 20 years ago that it's reaching its 20th birthday in less than a month?
I mean, it's weird to still be talking about it, to be honest. Like it feels like it sort of feels like yesterday, but also feels like a long time ago. And I'm shocked that 20 years later, anybody gives a shit about any of these records. But I'm glad. I mean, I think it's cool. I'm glad people argue over which one they like the best. And I love that some people hate certain records and love other ones. Like, I don't know. I like all that stuff. I think it's cool.
Yeah. And when you were playing in Orchid, what kind of bands did you like playing with, like watching when you guys played shows together? What were kind of your favorite bands in that era, like for that kind of music?
Well, I always have been a bit of a contrarian. So when we were starting to get some steam and we were kind of headlining our own tours and stuff like that, I was always kind of purposefully not wanting to tour with other bands that were playing similar style of music. I mean, hardcore, obviously, and like we did Jerome Stream a lot because we love those guys.
Yeah.
And they're great. But that's probably the only kind of screamo-y band we toured with. We toured with Red Scare, who I thought was just an amazing, amazing band. I think I'm right. And we toured with Lightning Bolts. I'm trying to think of some of the other. I mean, I was obsessed with, like, I know that the guy from Daughters, I watched a bit of his interviews. I dated a girl at Brown in Providence, and I started going to shows there and seeing Airborne Radar and Black Dice, and I was just, my eyes were open to a whole new style of music. I was obsessed with those bands, that kind of band. I honestly thought that was what was the cool bands. Like we were doing was not cool. Like I wished I was like in a cool band like these cool guys. But so yeah, I always would try to play shows with those kind of bands. Like we played with Chick Chick Chick. We would do a lot of sort of mixed bills, Love Life, like different kinds of bands. I honestly did not really like. There was like Scheherazade, Kitsak Haderach. There's a couple of bands that were in the same zone. Uranus, obviously, like completely obsessed with.
Yeah.
We're essentially like a Uranus cover band. So, and but I never saw them live. We weren't like around at the same time. His Hero was gone. Death Threat, like all those bands loved. I mean, there's a lot of great bands. I don't know. We just didn't really like Page 99 and Seisha, and we didn't really play with them very much. We'd never played with the Locusts. Like, there's a lot of bands I tried to
really?
I tried to avoid getting too hemmed into that one scene.
Yeah. Now your first tour that you guys went on, who did you go on tour with?
We were alone, but we had some dates that crossed over. We were in a minivan, and we played a bunch of shows with Burned Up Blood Dry. Do you know them?
I don't think I've heard.
They're sick. They're very good. Like kind of Here's Heroes Gone.
Oh, really?
This band called Hail Mary, which was from.
I've heard.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've seen shows with them. And we played. I'm trying to think of. I think it was just those two bands that we kind of crossed over with. All the rest of the shows were just us with whoever.
Yeah.
Was around. Yeah.
And how far did you guys go on that?
We went down to Florida. I think it was Florida and back, like to the East Coast. We spent a lot of time in Florida.
Yeah. and was there a tour with Jerome's Dream as well after that, or did you guys tour with them?
We did. I think we did two or three tours with Jerome's Dream. Yeah, we toured with them a bunch of times. Every time there was a school break, we were on tour. So, I think the longest one we did with them was the Chased by Bees tour in 2000. But we played with them a lot.
Yeah. Now, what do you think of them getting back together again? This past couple of years, what do you think of that? And did you hear the new song that they put out just recently? Maybe within 10 months ago, they put out a new song too.
Yeah, I heard the song that was like they released a song after the record came out.
Yeah.
I dug that. I thought it was cool. I mean, I say God bless them. Do whatever you want. I'm like, I think that if the music is theirs and they own it, and if they want to keep creating it and doing it and feel good about it, then great.
Yeah. I was psyched to see him. I went to the show in Somerville when they played maybe a year ago, and I was happy, surprised. I was surprised they were going back on tour, and then they got on that good European tour with Daughters. I was glad to see it. Do you ever think that Orchid would do a little reunion? No, no.
I mean, we it's come up. People have asked us. My feeling is that the whole thing with reunions, and again, it's like everybody should do what they want, but I think that this music, the reason why people like it is because either they were there and they were nostalgic for that moment in time, or they weren't there and they have this imagined idea about what the scene was like and wish they were there. So for either group, having a bunch of 40-year-olds drag these songs back out, it just feels a little depressing to me. And that takes away some of the mystique of what the band was. And it has nothing to do with we all get along, we all like each other. It's, we made that Ritual Mess. The majority of us are on that record. So, that to me is sort of what I'd rather be constantly making new stuff. I don't really want to be retreading things from 20 years ago. Yeah,
understandable. Definitely understand. Now with Ritual Mess, how did that come about? I know Andy from Wolves and Ampere plays drums in that band. How did that come about? Because basically it's like most of the guys from Orchid, and then Andy and was there somebody else that played in that band?
Yeah, there's another guitar player who's from Australia who I've never even met in person who plays on the record. And what happened there was Will had recorded a few songs with at that point, I don't know if Jeff played on the first 7-inch. I don't know if he did. But anyway, so they recorded a few songs, and Will said, "What do you think about singing on these?" And I listened to the songs, and I liked them a lot, so we sang on them, and I loved that. That's how the 7-inch turned out. I mean, I recorded those vocals in my apartment, in my bedroom. And then we were like, let's make an LP. And so those guys got together and went up to Massachusetts and recorded all the music. I was not there for that. And then I went up to Will's studio and did all the vocals in a day. And that's the LP. And I also love that record. Like, I think those are really, those are ones that like I listen to. I still listen to it every once in a while because I dig those records. I think they're cool.
Yeah. Vile Art is great. I love that album too.
Me too. Yeah.
It's
and
really,
I wasn't really part of making the music I wasn't there for the music making. So it still feels like it's almost sort of not my band in a weird way. So I that's why I can listen to it a little bit
now. Did you guys play shows after you made the album? Or?
No, we've never played live. Like I said, I never even met the guitar player. Like it was just this sort of project, and it was a way for Will and I and Jeff to kind of work together again in some capacity. So yeah.
Now, at the end of Orchid, how did everything kind of end, and then how did Panthers begin? Was it because of your love for Arab on Radar and different music like that kind of put you in a different direction, or?
No, it wasn't a love for them. Well, the two things overlapped. Panthers and Orchid overlapped. I left Hampshire College and moved to New York. I moved to Brooklyn. And Orchid was still happening. And we did a tour with the Red Scare, and the guitar player Kip from the Red Scare was moving to Brooklyn. And Jeff he's graduating from BU. He was moving to Brooklyn. Our drummer, Jeff, he graduated UMass. He was moving to Brooklyn. Then we're like, well, what? We should start a band in Brooklyn. We're all in Brooklyn. Let's start a band.
Yeah.
And I was really interested in the way the politics and the content of the Orchid songs were going. I was really into the concepts of the lyrics on those records. And then I had this idea that like, what if it was, this is where you're going to laugh. I had an idea that what if it was more accessible music? Like I was getting into the MC5 and like stuff like that, sort of revolutionary rock and roll.
Yeah.
And I like our friend Jared from Big Business and Carp was in Tight Bros from way back when, which are kind of this like rock and roll band, totally awesome. And so I was like, what if we did that? What if we did like a rock and roll band and it had revolutionary lyrics? And, you know, I was 20, whatever. And obviously we were completely incompetent in making approachable rock music. I can't sing, so I was always screaming. It was the first time of not kind of screaming. And so it turned into this kind of weird thing. But I mean, you know, I like those records. I understand why Orchid fans are maybe like, what? But I liked that band.
Yeah. Now, did you hear any backlash just from like the heavy Orchid fans that were like, what the hell?
They hated it. They hated it. We did a tour with Das Oath, Mark McCoy's band in Europe, and people would show up and stand in the front row and just go like this.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, people liked it too. Like we ended up with like a sort of, we had some Orchid fans that liked it, but we ended up with a whole new group of people that were interested in it. That band did better than Orchid did in terms of, you know.
I mean, I love Are You Down? I like the first album is for me being such a heavy like music lover. Yeah. When you guys did that, the crossover for me was pretty, you know, plain as day to me. I liked it right off the bat, and I know a lot of my friends were like, "Oh, I don't know, like listen to this, like this is an Orchid, like blah blah blah." But I enjoyed all the albums actually, and
well, that record has the dubious distinction of being the lowest rated Pitchfork album of all time. It's now not anymore, but it was like it got a 0.7 or something when it came out.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And also we released it. It came out right after 9/11, and the first line of the first song is "We're not a band, we're a cabal of terrorists." So it was not good timing. Exactly.
Yeah. So between Are You Down and Let's Get Serious, how like was that only like a year frame between those two albums?
I don't know how it works because we were buddies with Steve Aoki, who had a label. I think a lot of younger people don't understand this, but Steve was a straight edge hardcore kid. He put on shows. He wrote for Heart Attack, and he was a good pal of mine. And he started his label, and he put out the EP. And we recorded that with our friend Steve Revitt, who used to be an Angel Hair, but does the sound, front of house sound for LCD Sound System, and is a great sound engineer. And he did the last Panthers record too. But so I don't know what the time frame was between the two, but they weren't super far apart.
Yeah.
We really rushed the LP. That was like super rushed.
And then you took your time with the EP, is because it's an EP after Are You Down, right? So let's get,
Are You Down, and then Let's Get Serious.
Yes, it's an EP, right? Yeah.
And then Things Are Strange was when we got signed to Vice.
Yeah.
And yeah, that took a lot longer.
Yeah. And your sound kind of changed as you guys went on, right?
We were all getting, this is the thing, like I've just, because I think hardcore poisoned my brain, and I've never been career minded about music. I just go where my fancy kind of takes me. And if I'm interested in something, like that's what I want to do. I'm not trying to get fans or sell records. Like I'm just wanting to make whatever I want to make. And so we all got really into sort of proto metal and prog, and we were listening to all kinds of like 70s rock records, and we went from having this, pretty well received EP that was kind of an indie punk record, and then we made this, like, all the songs are like 8 minutes long. And people were again kind of confused, and especially the label.
And so how did what came after Panthers for you? Like when did Panthers end? Like why did it end, and what came after that? Well, I know Ritual Mess was after Panthers, but
it was well after. Yeah, so we did our last record. Our guitar player Kip had left the band / was fired from the band. It's kind of a lost to history now at this point. But we made that record, which I love that record, and then we did a tour with High on Fire. And everybody, Justin, our guitar player, was getting married, got a new job. Like we were like, it was one of those things where it was clear we were not going to make a living off this band anymore.
Yeah.
And everybody was just moving on. So Jeff and I were sort of the last two men standing, and we decided to call it because it was kind of like, didn't really make sense to keep going with it anymore. And we were in a good place. We ended on the best tour of the band's career was our last tour.
Yeah.
We were happy with the last record, and we decided to just kind of move on from there. And I don't know what I did after that. Violent Bullshit is what I did after that.
That was 2007, right? When Panthers ended, or 2008? Was it 2007?
I will take your word for it. I don't know. I'm not sure.
I think
dates aren't my thing.
Yeah. I'm not too good with it either. My age, I'm always, a lot of people ask me, "Oh, you remember this show?" And I always say, "No, I don't." And they're like, "You were there. There's a picture of you there." And I was like, "Oh, I guess I was there. I don't know."
Yeah, Jeff Garlock is the one with he's got like a steel trap. He remembers all of it. But then, after that, I did Violent Bullshit.
And how did Violent Bullshit come together?
Initially, it was going to be, I wanted to start a fun hardcore band with like basically after doing all the label stuff and the pressures of Panthers, I wanted to do something completely silly and just for fun and just to play shows in Brooklyn with our friends. And initially it was me, the guitar player of The Liars, Aaron, this band called Blood on the Wall, this guy Brad, he was going to play bass, and Jerry Fuchs, who was the drummer of Turing Machine, was going to be the drummer. And then everybody's band got popular and they all started going on tours. And then it ended up being, it was on the shelf for a while. Then I met a friend who kind of rekindled it in me, and we started the band with just some buddies from around town.
Yeah.
And it was just like a ragtag drunken debacle for quite a while.
Did you guys play a bunch of shows or?
Yeah, we played a ton, but it was almost all in Brooklyn. We did one tour to play a fest in Austin, like the Fuck Yeah Fest or something like that.
Yeah.
So we did one tour, and that was it.
Yeah. Adult Problems is really like that. That's my favorite.
Thanks.
It surprised me too, because I was kind of late to find it, And then once I did, I was happily surprised at what the sound was. You know what I mean? It was almost like to me, it was like a heavier Murphy's Law-ish, without the weed and booze lyrics. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
In that vein, though. You know
I'll
what I
take
mean?
that. That sounds good to me.
I mean, I love Murphy's Law too, but
Me
I'm just
too.
saying,
Yeah, me
like,
too. Me too. I love that. I mean, classic sort of New York hardcore is always the thing I liked. And also, there's a lot of, I feel like we were listening to a lot of Born Against and Negative Approach. And the band first were all in the same room together at a Negative Approach reunion show. That's how we kind of,
oh,
that's when the
really?
band
No.
formed. Yeah, yeah.
Now is that band? Are you still active in that band, or is that kind of
No, that's
that's
done.
not?
I mean, again, it's like the drummer, Dan, who was in Black Army Jacket, and Hail Mary, a bunch of other bands. He moved upstate. He's like running a farm. Yeah, I still play music with some of the guys, but a lot of, everyone's kind of split off. I mean, we're all getting older, so
Yeah.
keeping a kind of slightly ironic hardcore band going is not anyone's priority. I don't think.
Now, can you talk about Cheeseburger, that band?
Sure. Do people want to hear about Cheeseburger?
I mean, I'd like to hear about it.
Yeah, so Cheeseburger was a band before I was in it. It had a different singer, this guy Joe Bradley. And we Panthers would play with them a bunch, and they were like, if you liked them in Brooklyn, you were obsessed with them. Like their Brooklyn shows were legendary, kind of insane, debauched, like so fun, so fun. And I was obsessed with them. I thought they were fantastic, and they're all friends of mine, became friends of mine. And the lead singer became a famous artist, like a fine artist. And he decided it wasn't in his best interest really to be in Cheeseburger anymore. So he left. And I used to go on stage and sing with them. They used to have me sing one of the songs. So they asked me to join the band. They had a new record coming out and they wanted to support it. It was coming out on Adult Swim. And so I wasn't doing anything else. And I loved that band and I loved the record. And so I did it. And I was in the band for, I don't know, 2 years maybe. We did, and we played maybe more than that, 2 or 3 years. We played South by Southwest. We did festivals in Calgary. We did a lot of shows in Brooklyn and Manhattan, and it was super fun.
That's awesome. Now, are you playing in any other band? Are you playing music right now, or are you? What are you doing right now for music, if any?
Yeah, I am. I'm making a solo record. I released a single when I was on tour with the LCD Sound System a couple of years ago, and then I did a single on Adult Swim that came out right at the beginning of the pandemic in April, and I'm going to do a full LP, and it's not like any of the other stuff I've done so far. So,
And what kind of vein is that? Like what type of music?
It's sort of all over the place a little bit, but it has a lot of kind of like there's like krautrock stuff going on. There's Gary Newman stuff going on. It's like synths and drum machines, and but it's still kind of a punk rock record in some way, I guess.
Yeah. Now, are you doing most of the music, or are you having musicians come in and do stuff with you too?
Yeah, a lot of musicians are helping me. I have a lot of very talented friends. So my friend Andrew Raposo, this is from sort of the part of the world that probably Orchid fans will care the least about, but it's like the dance music world where I was DJing and all that stuff. So a lot of DFA artists, Nick from Holy Ghost, Nancy from LCD Sound System, Ahmed from Sin Kane, Andrew Raposo was in Midnight Magic. He recorded the record. So it's all those, they're all good. They're like those are the people I hang out with in New York, and those are my friends. So I made a record with my friends, essentially.
Nice. What got you into DJing too? What gave you the love to go DJ after being in heavy bands?
Well, it was during. So oh God, this stupid thing wants to. Oh my God, we're having a meltdown here. I have a very rinky-dink situation here, so I'm sorry. I was really into rap music always, kind of, growing up. and really into it in high school. And I think there was a lot of crossover with hip hop and hardcore in that world.
Yeah.
Big time. And then I got to college and I started DJing parties, and I was mainly doing hip hop. And then I moved to New York. And at the time in New York, you had to have records to DJ. So even if you weren't the greatest, if you had good enough taste and you had the records to support it, you could get gigs. And so that was like my job for a while. And I was playing big clubs, little clubs, almost all hip hop, sometimes dance hall.
Yeah.
And then through that, you get into disco music because that's where the samples for the hip hop records come from, house music, and that's kind of how it all came together. So it's still something I was doing it right up until the pandemic. So yeah.
It's funny. A lot of people don't see the how hip hop and hardcore have a lot of similarities like together. I've always said it to a lot of my friends and people that I talk to, and a lot of people just don't see it. You know what I mean? But if you're into, underground hip hop and you're into, I guess, I don't like to say underground, hardcore or screamo or punk or whatever, there's a lot of, the same like feelings that those crowds have, you know what I mean? And I feel that it's very similar, but a lot of people just don't see that.
Well, I think hardcore, especially sort of the kind of like tough guy, moshy hardcore stuff, they lean heavily on those kind of rhythms and the style, a lot of graffiti art. There's a lot of cultural stuff that overlaps. And I mean, it's unavoidable with bands being from New York, Brooklyn, Boston. Like, those people are entrenched in hip hop culture. There's no way that it's not going to bleed over into what they're doing. I think with like screamo bands or emo bands, that seems like a million miles away. It's the least liking to dance, liking to party group of people. It's very, it's more of like kind of a sexless scene than like hip hop or the other hardcore stuff.
Yeah.
So it seems a little further afield, I guess.
Yeah. I've always been like a huge hip hop fan. I don't know if you've skimmed through my page, but for a while there, I was only videotaping just hip hop bands.
I saw that. That's cool.
I'm a huge '90s hip hop guy. I started listening to it probably '86, towards like the first Run DMC album that came out.
That's what got me.
I was a metalhead, and I heard that album, and it changed my life. I think I listened to it about 50 times in a row because I had never heard anything like that. And that.
Yeah. I mean, if you like heavy music, these are heavy records. The production is heavy. Like Bomb Squad production is heavy. I mean, these are heavy records. And, obviously industrial music, all this stuff touches each other, I think. Yeah.
And I think it's good to have your hand in everything music-wise because, like for me, I was a huge new wave 80s guy too. I love new wave 80s music and on top of the heavy metal and the metalcore and the hip hop and the punk stuff. I think it's good to just be well-rounded when listening to music. I know back in the day there was like a lot of like snobbish attitudes when you'd go to a show, that's why I was saying like I loved the music, but I didn't necessarily fit in with the crowd because I was a youth crew kid and I looked youth crew, and they, a lot of people just didn't really, they didn't want to come over and talk to me because maybe they thought I was an asshole or I don't know. But
well, it's very, hardcore is very cliquey, and all these subgenres for people who don't know about the music. Even metal has the same thing. It's, there's like grindcore, porno grind, death metal, black metal, and it's all so specific, and the people involved in it are very picky about the designations. I understand it because most of these people are just looking for a group of like-minded people to support them because they feel like weirdos. So the more specific you can be about the things you like, the safer you feel with this group of people. You're speaking the same language, you're wearing the same outfits, you're listening to the same records. As you get older, that gets less important, I think. But as a kid, especially if you're growing up in a weird town and it's that stuff is important, I think.
Yeah. definitely. You being you lived in New Hampshire for a little while, Farmington. How many years did you live in Farmington?
I was there for maybe 4 years. I left after I left after first grade. Yeah, I started second grade in Connecticut. Yeah, I went to Catholic school in Rochester, New Hampshire.
Oh, Rochester, yeah.
Yeah.
They actually had a big hardcore scene in Rochester back in the day in the late '90s. There was
Did they really?
Yeah, there was a place called Safe and
Oh
Sound
no,
up
my
in.
my mom actually just called me during this.
Oh, she did.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so Rochester did have a big scene for a little while in the late '90s. Actually, I had seen Cave In played up there and Converge. I saw Reversal of Man play up there.
Oh wow.
Assuck played up there. It was Creation is Crucifixion played up there. It's like it was a pretty for a shitty town like that. It was
pretty
pretty
good.
good. Yeah, it was pretty good up there.
I mean, being from there, I think Orchid maybe played Vermont and New Hampshire maybe once. I think, I don't know. We rarely went above Massachusetts.
Do you remember where it was in New Hampshire?
No, I have no idea. I think we played maybe Brattleboro in Vermont, maybe.
Yeah.
New Hampshire, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I know it. The scene was kind of died down a little bit. I always say, back when we were younger, there was there was like 2 or 3 shows every week. Whether it be metalcore show or a screamo show or just a regular youth crew show. Nowadays it's not like that, and it kind of taps into what you were saying about people that weren't in the scene that like wanted to witness that and feel that thing that we felt and were a part of. It was just so special to me because, like I said, every week there was 2-3 shows. One Connecticut, Boston, Manchester, New Hampshire had one. It was just like nonstop back in the day, and now it's not like that. And it's not that it's tough on the younger people now, but it's not like what it was when we were young. And
is that true though? I mean, I don't know, because when I was in high school, there was a show every night of the week in Connecticut. I mean, I was going constantly to hardcore shows.
Yeah.
I have this feeling that this, I'm almost convinced of it. Obviously now in the pandemic, no, but that this is still shows are happening all the time, but we're old people now. We don't know where the kids are having their shows, In Brooklyn, I'm sure they're having awesome shows constantly that I don't know about.
Yeah.
It's a young person's game. So I assume that scene is still going on. We're just not a part of it anymore. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, I try to stay relevant to new music, and it seems, just in my opinion, it just seems that it's not. I'm like you said, there are a lot of good new bands that are playing now, but it seems like the shows are just few and far in between, and not like a powerhouse lineup like we would see like you said, every night there would be a show in Connecticut, but the shows in Connecticut would be like a packed lineup. You'd see 6 like amazing bands and it would happen every weekend. You know what I mean? You probably saw Hatebreed probably 30 times living in Connecticut.
More than 30 times, my God.
Yeah.
Easily 100 times I've seen Hatebreed. 25 to Life, I must have seen like, I don't know, 400 times. I'm not sure. It's, that they played constantly. I mean, there's a lot of, I've seen those bands a lot, for sure.
Now, when was the last time you listened to Under the Knife by Hatebreed?
Not that long ago, honestly, because he released new music, and I was curious about it, and I listened to it, and I was sort of like, yeah, it's fine, And then I was like, oh, what does the old demo sound like? And I put it on, and it sounds like dog shit, but it's still, the songs are so good.
Yeah, the songs are so good. It's recorded horribly, but the songs are so good, though.
Yeah,
they're so good.
He used to do this thing when I would see them. I never would get in the pit for Hatebreed because it was just like, it was a fight,
Yeah.
So I can't remember which song it was, but he would say, the be a ring out chord right before the mosh part, and he would say, let the Connecticut prison riots begin. And then everybody just like started beating the hell out of each other. It's pretty amazing. I saw them play at South by Southwest when I was in Panthers, I believe. And they came on stage to the Rocky theme, and it was incredible.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah. Here's another fun fact. I was asked to play bass in Hatebreed.
Really?
And I said no because I was scared of them. So.
Just think.
I know where I could be now. Yeah.
It's amazing. I never knew that.
Well, I think that probably even the members of Hatebreed don't remember that. So, but yeah, it was.
That's great. Now, were you a mosher when you were younger, or were you in the pit like doing your thing?
I was in a crew called Team Stage Dive, so I did a lot of stage diving. But I was like a posse corps kid, so it was a lot of it wasn't really kickboxing stuff, but a lot of pizza makers, a lot of floor punches, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Nice. All right, we got about 10 minutes, so I usually do a little rapid fire to everybody I talk to. So my first question is favorite New England punk hardcore band for you all time. It could be hardcore, punk, screamo, but from New England.
New England punk hardcore band. Is New York New England?
No.
Oh,
so it'll be Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont.
Oh,
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island counts?
Yep, Rhode Island counts.
Maybe Six Finger Satellite. I don't know. I'm going to be bad at these.
All right, my second question. What was the first punk hardcore show you attended as a fan or attendee, just going?
There was an all-ages club in New Haven called the Tune-In, and I used to go see ska shows there because I was dating this girl who was into ska. And there was a punk hardcore band called The Pissed that played one of the shows. They were from Connecticut. And that was the first kind of hardcore band I saw. And then I think Cornerstone and Fast Break was the first legit full-on hardcore show.
Yeah, nice.
You know what? Cornerstone might be my favorite New England hardcore. Those guys are so good. I love them.
They were good. Yeah, they were good. All right, next one. All-time favorite punk hardcore show you played? Like, what stood out to you? Like, it gave you like the greatest feeling, like when you played that show. Like,
there's a few really good ones, but we played a show in Germany, and it was a festival in the middle. It was like in the middle of the woods. I can't even explain what this place was, but it was sort of this bar, and then they had a back room with a stage. And by the time we went on, we were last, and it was completely packed, and the stage was packed with people. Everyone was on the stage. And it was just such a crazy vibe in the room. It was the first time I played a show after having drank anything. So I had a couple beers beforehand. And it was so hot in there, and the power shorted out because it was so crazy. And then it turned back on. It was that was really memorable show. And then we played a show in San Francisco at the Cocadrille. It was us, Lightning Bolt, Chick Chick Chick, and it was one of the biggest rooms I think we had played up until that point, and we had to play on the stage because it was just so full of people.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry, my battery's dying now. But yeah, those two, I think those two really stand out to me.
Nice.
More than music was pretty
all right, my next one. Yeah. Now, do you miss a bunch of people all over you, like the videotape?
No.
The videotape
no, I can't believe. I mean, I feel bad for the guys who have to play an instrument. I mean, it's completely. But I used to have cuts on my face from getting hit in cymbals and.
Yeah. I mean, the microphone must have smashed you in the mouth.
I have so many. My teeth are all in the front are a mess because of it.
Yeah. All right. My next question is, all-time favorite punk hardcore show you attended, like watching.
Honestly, I saw Landed play in Rhode Island, and the lead singer lit himself on fire. And it was the most legitimately frightened I'd been at a show in my life, and that was pretty cool. So that was very memorable.
Was he all right after he
No, he went to the hospital. He played
Jesus.
the show, but he was completely like third-degree burnt. It was insane.
Wow.
He lit himself on fire, then ran into the crowd, like trying to grab people.
Everybody like scattered?
Yeah, I mean, people jumped out the windows on the fire escape. It was complete madness.
Oh my God. All right, my next question. What was the last movie you watched?
We watched Rebecca, that Ben Wheatley, this British director, did an adaptation of a Daphne du Maurier novel for Netflix, and it was only fine. But that's what I watched last. I'm obsessed with movies.
Yeah, me too. I can't get enough.
Yeah.
All right. Since it was Halloween just a couple days ago, what is your favorite horror movie of all time?
I would say there's a lot, and it changes constantly. But Don't Look Now, with Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie, a Nicholas Roeg film. The Tenant by Roman Polanski is a favorite. Those two, and Calvaire, which is a French horror film from the early 2000s, I also love. Those are always kind of in rotation for me.
Yeah. French horror movies are, I feel, underrated in America. That people that haven't seen them, I mean, sometimes they're a little crazy, but
yeah,
they go at it.
For sure.
French horror movies.
Yes.
All right. My last question is, if you've been listening to hip hop lately, what have you been listening to?
I've been listening to, I just, my record collection, I just kind of started organizing a bit more. So I been listening to a lot of 90s stuff. Are you asking about new artists?
Just what? Well,
it
doesn't matter.
Hip-hop record I listened to was Cool G Rap, and then I also just listened to the Black album, the Jay-Z Black album.
Yeah, Cool G Rap is amazing. I love Cool G Rap. That's like the stuff that I love. I mean, like Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, even like the weirder like Special Ed and
I love all.
I don't know if you've ever heard Hard to Obtain. They're like from Long Island. They were like a 90s hip hop group. But if you ever get a chance, try to listen to Hard to Obtain. They're really good, from Long Island. It's in the like late 90s. It's good stuff though. Really good.
I'll
stuff.
check it out.
All right, and lastly, I just wanted to talk about how you got into comedy and doing stand up and stuff like that. How did that come about?
I was acting in plays and stuff like that when I was a kid, and Jeff and I were really big comedy nerds growing up. And between tours, when we moved to New York, we started taking classes at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater. And then the band kind of took off, and I wasn't able to really go take the classes anymore, and it was the music thing for a long time. And then after the touring kind of stopped, I made a promise to myself that I would try stand up before I was 30, so I started doing it, and that's it. That's the story.
And are you still doing that right now?
I mean, not really.
Well, not obviously not right now during the pandemic, but is it in your
I am to a certain. I mean, I still like doing it, and it's a thing that I think I'll maybe, like music, I'll probably do it in some manner forever, but yeah, it's not a career path for me. It's just a thing I like to do.
Yes, something fun to do. Yeah. Now, have you talked to the guys in Orchid recently, or you guys all still keep in touch with each other?
Yeah. I mean, it's mostly through email and Instagram and all that kind of stuff now. But yeah. I mean, I'm in touch with Jeff the most, and I still talk to Will. I haven't talked to Jeff, the drummer, in quite a while, but he's a great guy. And yeah.
I forgot to ask, how did Brad Wallace start before Jeff? Like, how did those guys kind of switch? Like
Brad and Will were friends. I don't know if they were friends. I think they were friends even maybe before college. But he was much like Will, kind of like a grindcore, crusty, hardcore kid. And he was at Hampshire, and he played bass. And he's a great guy, super funny. And yeah, so that's how he started. He started in the band. And then after he had to leave the band,
Nice. All right. Well, it's been an hour, and I was gonna wrap things up, but I super appreciate you taking the time out to do this. You did for a second, yeah. I think you're all right. Well, that was Jeff. I want to thank him so much for doing it, and thank everybody for watching.